5 men surrounded her. The biggest one grabbed her wrist hard enough to leave bruises. "Stay still, little girl," he growled. Elena Reyes didn't move. Not because she was afraid. Because she was calculating. 5 targets, 47 witnesses. One chance to end this without blowing 4 months of undercover work. She had 45 seconds to make a choice that would change everything. Naval Air Station Pensacola, 0647 hours. The morning everything exploded. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel. Follow this story to the end and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Elena Reyes walked into Building 7's mess hall carrying a logistics clipboard and wearing the face of nobody special. 20 years old, 5'4", 115 pounds soaking wet. Brown hair pulled back so tight it made her temples ache. Uniform 2 sizes too big because supply hadn't bothered getting her the right fit. She looked exactly like what her cover said she was a supply clerk from Des Moines who'd joined the Navy to escape a dead-end town and an even deader-end future. Nobody looked twice at her. That was the point. Elena grabbed a tray and moved through the serving line, accepting portions of powdered eggs and burnt bacon from a cook who never made eye contact. She thanked him anyway. He grunted in response. 4 months. She'd been on this base for 4 months, building relationships, mapping networks, tracking the flow of classified shipping information that was somehow ending up in cartel hands. 19 girls were currently being trafficked through military logistics channels, moved like cargo through routes that only people with high-level access could know. Elena was going to find those girls. But first she had to eat breakfast without anyone remembering she existed. She found a table in the back corner, sat down, and started eating. That's when she noticed them. 5 men at a corner table. Aviation maintenance recruits, judging by their patches. They'd been drinking last night, she could tell by the way 2 of them kept squinting against the fluorescent lights. They were loud laughing too hard at jokes that weren't funny, trying to shake off the fog of cheap beer and bad decisions. Their ringleader sat at the head of the table like a king holding court. Petty Officer 3rd Class Derek Walsh, 24 years old, 6'2", 210 pounds. Square jaw, close-cropped hair, the kind of shoulders that came from spending more time in the gym than the classroom. Elena knew his file by heart. Walsh had attempted SEAL qualification training 18 months ago. He'd made it to Hell Week. Day 3, hour 16, he'd rung the bell. Quit. Walked away from everything he'd told everyone he was going to be. The failure had broken something inside him. Now he channeled that broken thing into making other people feel small. Especially women. Especially anyone he perceived as weaker than himself. Elena watched him from the corner of her eye while pretending to focus on her eggs. Walsh was telling a story. Arms spread wide, voice carrying across half the mess hall. His 4 friends hung on every word. Tyler Brooks, 22, Walsh's shadow, laughed at everything Walsh said, would follow him off a cliff if Walsh told him the fall would be fun. Marcus Cole, 23, uncomfortable but silent, the kind of man who knew right from wrong but lacked the spine to act on it. Jimmy Ortega, 24, the biggest of the group, 6'2", 220. But Elena had noticed him favoring his left leg when he walked. Old knee injury, probably from high school football. A weakness she filed away automatically. David Chen, 21, the youngest. He kept checking his phone, clearly wishing he was somewhere else. The reluctant participant. The one who might walk away if given permission. Walsh finished his story. His friends laughed on cue. Then his eyes swept the room and landed on Elena. She felt his gaze like a cold finger running down her spine. "Well, well," Walsh said, loud enough for his whole table to hear. "Look what we have here." Elena kept eating. "Don't engage. Don't react. Don't give him anything to work with." "Hey, Brooks," Walsh continued. "You see that little thing over there? The one trying to hide in the corner?" "I see her," Brooks said, grinning. "She looks lost." "She looks like she wandered in from a high school cafeteria," Walsh said. "Maybe we should go check her ID. Make sure she's supposed to be here." The other men laughed. Cole's laugh was forced. Chen didn't laugh at all. Elena took another bite of her eggs. Cold now. Tasteless. It didn't matter. She'd eaten worse in worse places. Walsh pushed back from his table and stood up. Elena's hand tightened on her fork. Not a weapon, just a reflex. Old habits. "I think I'm gonna go say hello," Walsh announced. "Show her some genuine Navy hospitality." "Derek, man, just leave it," Chen said quietly. "We've got PT in an hour." Walsh shot him a look that could cut glass. "Did I ask for your opinion?" Chen looked away. Walsh started walking toward Elena's table. The other four followed Brooks eagerly. Ortega, with a predator's interest, Cole reluctantly, Chen bringing up the rear like a man walking to his own execution. Elena set down her fork. "Here we go." Walsh reached her table and stood directly across from her, arms crossed, blocking her view of the rest of the mess hall. His friends spread out behind her, forming a loose semicircle. Elena didn't look up. "Hey," Walsh said. "I'm talking to you." She took another bite of her eggs. "You deaf or just stupid?" Walsh leaned forward, planting both hands on her table. "I said I'm talking to you, little girl." Elena finally looked up, made eye contact, kept her face completely neutral. "Can I help you with something?" Walsh's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to calm responses. He was used to fear, nervousness, deference. This girl was giving him nothing. "Yeah, you can help me," he said. "You can tell me what someone like you is doing in my Navy." "Your Navy?" "That's right, my Navy. I've been in for 6 years. I've earned my place here. You look like you should be working at a Dairy Queen, not wearing that uniform." Elena held his gaze. "I'm eating breakfast. That's what I'm doing in your Navy. Now, if you'll excuse me." She started to stand. Walsh's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. Hard. "I didn't say you could leave." The mess hall got quieter. People at nearby tables had noticed the confrontation. Some looked concerned. Others looked curious. None of them moved to intervene. Elena looked down at Walsh's hand wrapped around her wrist, then back up at his face. "Let go of me." "Or what?" Walsh grinned. "You gonna cry, run to your commanding officer, tell them the mean boys were picking on you? I'm asking you nicely, let go." "I don't think so." Walsh squeezed harder. Elena felt the bones in her wrist grinding together. "I think you need to learn some respect first. I think you need to understand that there are people in this Navy who actually belong here, and then there are people like you who are just taking up space." Brooks moved closer, feeding off his leader's energy. "Maybe she needs a lesson, Derek. Show her how things work around here." "Yeah," Walsh said, eyes never leaving Elena's face. "Maybe she does." Elena's mind was racing through calculations. 5 opponents, all larger than her. Walsh was the primary threat, aggressive, unstable something to prove. Brooks was a follower who would attack if Walsh did. Ortega was dangerous, but had that bad knee. Cole wouldn't commit fully. Chen might not fight at all. The mess hall had 47 people in it. 12 were within immediate earshot. 4 had their phones out, probably recording. If she fought back, her cover was blown. 4 months of work destroyed. The trafficking network would scatter. 19 girls would disappear, probably forever. If she didn't fight back, Walsh would escalate. Men like him always did, and eventually someone would get hurt. She had two choices, and both of them were bad. "Last chance," Elena said, her voice dropping to something quieter, colder. "Let go of my wrist and walk away. We can all pretend this never happened." Walsh laughed. Listen to her, trying to sound tough. "Sweetheart, there are 5 of us and 1 of you. What exactly do you think you're going to do?" Elena looked at each of the 5 men surrounding her one by one. Brooks grinning, Ortega curious, Cole uncomfortable, Chen clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Then back to Walsh. "I think," she said slowly, "that you should pray to whatever God you believe in, that you make the right choice in the next 3 seconds." Walsh blinked. Something in her voice had shifted. Something that didn't match her size, her age, her cover story. For just a moment, doubt flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by anger. "Did you just threaten me?" He jerked her arm, pulling her half out of her seat. "Did this little girl just threaten me?" "Derek!" Chen started. "Shut up, David." Walsh's face was red now. "I'm going to teach this girl what happens when you don't show respect to your superiors." His free hand drew back. Elena saw it coming. The telegraphed punch of someone who'd never fought anyone who could fight back. Time slowed down. She had a choice to make. And she made it. Elena moved. Not away from Walsh. Into him. Her free hand shot up and grabbed his wrist, the one holding her, and rotated it sharply outward. A joint lock that hyperextended his elbow and forced his fingers to release her arm involuntarily. Walsh screamed. Before the sound finished leaving his mouth, Elena had already transitioned. She drove her palm into his solar plexus with surgical precision, hitting the exact cluster of nerves that would short-circuit his diaphragm. Walsh folded like a cheap lawn chair, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Time elapsed 4 seconds. Brooks lunged at her from the right, arms outstretched, going for a tackle that would have worked on someone who didn't know it was coming. Elena sidestepped, grabbed his extended arm, and used his own momentum to redirect him face first into the edge of the table. The crack of his nose breaking echoed through the suddenly silent mess hall. Brooks went down, blood streaming between his fingers, making sounds that weren't quite words. Time elapsed 9 seconds. Ortega charged. He was the biggest, the strongest, and under normal circumstances he might have been the most dangerous. But Elena had been watching him all morning. She'd seen the slight hesitation every time he put weight on his left leg. The old injury that had never quite healed. She dropped low and swept his bad knee. Ortega's leg buckled. He went down hard, his own weight working against him, his kneecap making a grinding sound that made everyone in earshot wince. He wouldn't be walking right for weeks, Time elapsed 17 seconds. Cole backed away, hands raised. "I don't want any trouble. I don't want—" "Then stay down," Elena said. Cole sat down at the nearest table, hands still raised, eyes wide. Time elapsed 20 seconds. That left Chen. The youngest one. The reluctant one. The one who'd tried to talk his friends out of this from the beginning. He stood frozen, looking at his 4 friends, one gasping on the floor, one bleeding from a broken nose, one clutching his knee, one sitting at a table like a child in timeout. "Please," he said. "I didn't want this. I told them—" "I know," Elena said. "That's why you're still standing." Time elapsed 25 seconds. Walsh had finally caught his breath. He rolled onto his side, face purple with rage and humiliation, and his hand went to his cargo pocket. Elena saw the knife before he finished drawing it. A tactical folder, 3-inch blade, The kind of thing guys like Walsh carried because it made them feel dangerous. "You're dead," Walsh snarled, scrambling to his feet. "You hear me? You're dead!" He lunged at her blade extended. Elena didn't retreat. She stepped inside his attack, trapped his knife arm against her body, and executed a joint lock that levered his wrist backward until something snapped. 2 of his fingers. Maybe 3. Walsh screamed again, higher this time, a sound of genuine agony, and the knife clattered to the floor. Elena kicked it away, swept his legs, and rode him down to the ground. She ended up on top of him, her forearm across his throat, her face inches from his. "Don't move," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle, but there was nothing gentle in her eyes. Time elapsed, 45 seconds. The mess hall was absolutely silent. 47 people had just watched a woman who looked like she should be taking orders at a coffee shop systematically dismantle 5 men in less than a minute. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. Elena stayed on top of Walsh's forearm, pressed against his windpipe, controlling his breathing. He stared up at her with eyes that had gone from angry to confused to something approaching genuine terror. "Who?" he whispered, voice strangled. "What are you?" Elena leaned closer, close enough that only he could hear her next words. "I'm the reason you should have walked away when you had the chance." She held him there for 3 more seconds, long enough to make sure he understood that she could end him if she chose to, then released the pressure and stood up. Walsh didn't move. He lay on the floor, cradling his broken fingers, staring at the ceiling like he was seeing it for the first time. Brooks was still on the ground, blood pooling beneath his ruined nose. Ortega was trying to stand, failing his knee, refusing to support his weight. Cole hadn't moved from the table where he'd sat down. Chen stood exactly where he'd been standing, looking like he might throw up. Elena straightened her uniform. Her hair was still in its regulation bun. Her breathing was barely elevated. She looked exactly like she had when she'd walked into the mess hall 15 minutes ago. Ordinary. Forgettable. Nobody special. Except now, 47 people knew that was a lie. She scanned the room automatically, noting the phones that had been recording the faces of the witnesses, the security camera in the corner that had captured everything. Her cover wasn't just blown. It was incinerated. Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb stood at the serving line, a tray of food growing cold in his hands, watching the aftermath of what had just happened. 25 years in the Navy, 3 combat deployments, 2 Bronze Stars. He'd seen men fight. He'd seen trained men fight. He'd seen operators fight. What he'd just witnessed wasn't just training. That was something else entirely. The tiny girl in the too big uniform, had moved with the kind of efficiency that only came from thousands of hours of specialized instruction. Joint locks, pressure points, economy of movement. She'd neutralized 5 hostiles in 45 seconds without breaking a sweat. More importantly, she'd done it without causing permanent damage. That last part was what really scared him. It's easy to hurt someone when you're fighting. It's easy to break bones, rupture organs, end lives. Anybody with enough training and adrenaline can do that. But to fight at that level of precision, to disable without destroying. To end a confrontation in under a minute while leaving all 5 opponents alive and mostly functional. That took control. The kind of control that most people never achieved. The kind of control they only taught in Tier 1 units. Webb set down his tray. He needed to make a phone call. Elena was still standing in the middle of the mess hall when the first wave of reactions hit. "Holy, did you see that? Someone call security and get it on video. Already uploaded, dude." Elena's stomach dropped. Uploaded. The word echoed in her mind like a death sentence. 47 witnesses were bad enough. A viral video was catastrophic. She thought about the trafficking network she'd been tracking. The corrupt logistics personnel who'd been selling shipping routes to cartels. The 19 girls who were being moved through military channels like cargo. All of that was compromised now. 4 months of work. 4 months of building trust, gathering intelligence, mapping connections. Gone in 45 seconds. Security arrived within 3 minutes. 4 MPs in full gear, hands on their weapons, responding to multiple calls about a violent altercation in the mess hall. They found Elena standing calmly near her table, the 5 men she'd defeated in various states of injury around her, and 47 witnesses talking over each other to explain what had happened. The senior MP, a burly master-at-arms named Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, approached Elena with caution. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us." Elena nodded. "Of course." Rodriguez looked at the 5 men on the ground, then back at Elena. His expression was a mixture of professional detachment and barely concealed awe. "Did you do this? They attacked me. I defended myself." All 5 of them. All 5 of them." Rodriguez exchanged a glance with his fellow MPs. One of them, a younger guy who couldn't have been more than 22, was staring at Elena like she'd grown a second head. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said carefully, "I've been doing this job for 12 years. I've never seen one person take down 5 attackers that fast." Elena said nothing. "Who trained you?" Elena met his eyes. "I'm a supply clerk from Des Moines. I took some self-defense classes." Rodriguez didn't believe her. She could see it in his face, but he was too professional to push the issue in front of witnesses. "We're going to need to escort you to the security office," he said, "for your protection as much as anything else." "I understand." As they led her out of the mess hall, Elena passed within arm's reach of Senior Chief Webb. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, recognition maybe, or understanding. The kind of silent communication that only happens between people who have lived in worlds that most civilians never see. Webb didn't say anything, but his eyes said everything. "I know what you are." The video hit TikTok before Elena reached the security office. By the time she was seated in an interrogation room, it had 100,000 views. By the time Lieutenant Commander Sarah Patterson arrived to question her, it had 1 million. By the time Patterson finished reading Elena's clearly fabricated service record, it had 5 million views and was trending on 3 separate platforms. Patterson set down the folder and studied Elena across the metal table. "Supply Specialist Elena Reyes," she read. "Born in Des Moines, Iowa, graduated from Roosevelt High School, joined the Navy at 18, completed basic training at Great Lakes, assigned to logistics support at Naval Air Station Pensacola 8 months ago." Elena nodded. "That's your story." "That's my record, ma'am." Patterson leaned forward. "Your record says you're a clerk who pushes papers and tracks shipments. Your record says you've never had any combat training beyond basic self-defense. Your record says you're completely unremarkable in every measurable way." She paused. "But I just watched you take apart 5 trained men in 45 seconds, using techniques I've only seen in special operations personnel. So I'm going to ask you one-time Specialist Reyes, who are you really?" Elena held Patterson's gaze. The silence stretched. Everything she'd worked for the mission, the girls, the network, hung in the balance. "I'm exactly who my record says I am, ma'am." Patterson's eyes narrowed. "That's your answer?" "That's my answer." Patterson stood up and walked to the door. She opened it, revealing 2 more MPs waiting in the hallway. "Keep her here," Patterson said. "Don't let anyone talk to her until I get back." She looked back at Elena one more time. "Someone is lying to me, Specialist Reyes, and I'm going to find out who." The door closed. Elena sat alone in the interrogation room, listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall. The video now had 10 million views, and somewhere in a warehouse at the port of Pensacola, 19 girls were running out of time. The clock on the wall ticked 53 times before the door opened again. Elena counted every second, a habit from training. When you're alone in hostile territory, you measure time, because time is the only thing you can control. But it wasn't Patterson who walked through that door. It was Senior Chief Marcus Webb. He closed the door behind him, moved to the chair across from Elena, and sat down without saying a word. For a long moment he just looked at her, studying, assessing. The way a man studies a weapon he's never seen before. "The MPs outside think I'm here to check on the incident report," Webb said finally. "Patterson's upstairs dealing with phone calls from Washington. Apparently your little video has caught some attention." Elena said nothing. 22 million views now, Webb continued. "Climbing fast. Someone edited it with slow-motion replays. They're calling you the mess hall ghost online. Creative, I'll give them that." Still nothing. Webb leaned forward. "I've been in this Navy for 25 years. 3 combat deployments. I've worked with Force Recon Marines, Army Rangers, Delta operators. I know what elite training looks like when I see it." Elena met his eyes, but kept her face neutral. "That wasn't self-defense," Webb said quietly. "That was surgical. You hit pressure points that most people don't even know exist. You controlled every engagement, managed multiple attackers, and ended the whole thing in under a minute without causing any permanent damage." He paused. "There's only one program I know of that teaches people to fight like that, and they don't exactly advertise it." Elena's heart rate increased slightly, but her expression didn't change. "I don't know what you're talking about, Senior Chief." Webb smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "I ran your fingerprints through a database I'm not supposed to have access to. Took some favors, called in some debts." Elena's hands went cold. "You want to know what came back?" She didn't answer. "One word," Webb said. "Phantom." The room seemed to shrink. Elena's training screamed at her to deny everything, to maintain cover, to stick to the story no matter what. But Webb's eyes told her he already knew. Denial would only waste time she didn't have. "How?" she asked. "I told you. Favors and debts." Webb sat back. "I made a phone call after I saw you fight. Talked to some people who talk to other people. Turns out they've been looking for an excuse to pull you out for 3 weeks now." "Pull me out?" "My mission isn't complete. Your mission is compromised. Has been since the video went viral." Elena shook her head. "The trafficking network. The 19 girls. I'm close. Another week, maybe 2. "You don't have another week." Webb's voice hardened. "The people you've been tracking, they've already seen the video. They're running facial recognition on every frame right now. If they haven't identified you yet, they will within hours." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. She'd known her cover was blown the moment those phones started recording, but hearing it confirmed made it real in a way that knowing hadn't. 4 months of work. 4 months of building trust, gathering intelligence, mapping the network that was selling shipping routes to cartels. Gone. "The girls," Elena said. "What happens to the girls?" Webb's expression shifted. Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "Most operators would be worried about themselves right now. Extraction, new identity disappearing before the cartel finds them. I'm not most operators." "No," Webb agreed. "You're not." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a phone. Not a military-issued device, something civilian, probably a burner. "Your handler is en route. Captain Victoria Drake. She'll be here within the hour. Elena knew Drake. The woman had recruited her at 17, trained her, pushed her harder than anyone had ever pushed her before. Drake had been the one to convince Elena that her parents' deaths didn't have to be meaningless, that she could honor their sacrifice by becoming something more. What does Drake want? That's above my pay grade. Webb stood up. But I can tell you this, whatever happens next, it's going to happen fast. The people who run your program don't like attention, and right now you've got more attention than anyone in the military. He walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Specialist Reyes, or whatever your real name is, those 5 men deserved what they got. Walsh especially. He's been a problem since he washed out of buds. Maybe now he'll think twice before putting his hands on someone. He opened the door. Good luck. Something tells me you're going to need it. The door closed behind him. Elena sat alone again, counting the seconds, waiting for whatever came next. The video had 25 million views now, and climbing. 47 minutes later, Captain Victoria Drake walked into the interrogation room like she owned the building. She was 45 years old, with steel-gray hair, cut short and practical, and eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine. She wore civilian clothes, a dark blazer and slacks, but everything about her screamed military authority. Drake sat down across from Elena and placed a tablet on the table between them. 29 million views, she said, without preamble. Trending #1 on TikTok, #3 on Twitter, making the rounds on every major news network. CNN is calling you the mystery soldier. Fox wants to know if you're part of some secret women's combat program, and the Secretary of Defense has personally called the base commander twice in the last hour. Elena absorbed this information without reacting. I didn't have a choice. I know you didn't. I've watched the video 30 times. You gave them every opportunity to walk away. They chose to escalate. Drake picked up the tablet and swiped through several screens. The problem isn't what you did. The problem is who saw you do it. She turned the tablet around so Elena could see the screen. Facial recognition results. Her face captured from multiple angles in the viral video matched against international databases. 18 countries have run your image through their systems in the last 3 hours, Drake said. Most of them came up empty because we've scrubbed your official records. But the Sinaloa cartel has their own recognition software. Private contractors. Very good. Elena's chest tightened. They know who I am. They know someone embedded at Pensacola has been tracking their logistics operation. They know that someone is a young woman with combat training far beyond what her cover suggests. They're putting pieces together as we speak, yeah. The 19 girls are being moved tonight? Drake's voice was flat. We intercepted communications 40 minutes ago. The network is accelerating their timeline because of you. They're scared, which means they're running. Elena stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Then we have to stop them. You can still what? Drake cut her off. Walk onto that pier and politely ask them to hand over 19 trafficking victims. Your face is on every screen in the country. You can't operate undercover anymore. That part of your career is over. The words landed like hammer blows. Over. Elena had been invisible her entire adult life. She'd trained for years to become a ghost, to move through the world without leaving traces, to be nobody, so she could be everywhere. Now she was somebody. The most visible person in the Navy. There has to be something I can do. Drake studied her for a long moment. There is, but you're not going to like it. Tell me. We have a team ready to intercept the shipment. 6 operators, full tactical support. The problem is we don't know exactly where the exchange is happening. Our intel says Port of Pensacola, but that's a big area with a lot of warehouses. I can narrow it down, Elena said immediately. I've been tracking their movements for 4 months. I know their patterns, their contacts, I know you do. Drake leaned forward. That's why you're going on the raid. Elena blinked. What? Not undercover. Not as a ghost. As yourself. Drake's eyes hardened. The cartel knows you're coming now. They're expecting an attack. The element of surprise is gone. Then what's the point of... The point is they're expecting an attack. What they're not expecting is you walking through their front door. Elena processed this. You want to use me as bait. I want to use you as a distraction. You hit them from one direction, my team hits them from another. While they're focused on the famous girl from the video, we extract the victims and neutralize the network. It was insane. It was suicidal. It went against every principle of covert operations Elena had been taught. It was also the only plan that had any chance of working. When? Elena asked. 3 hours. The exchange is happening at midnight. Elena looked at the tablet again, her face frozen in the moment before she'd taken Walsh down. Her eyes caught mid-calculation, revealing something most people would never recognize, but that professionals would spot immediately. The eyes of a predator. What about my cover? My identity if I do this publicly? Your cover is already gone. Your identity is already compromised. The only question is whether you want to go down as a victim or as the person who stopped 19 girls from disappearing forever. Elena thought about her parents. Both killed in classified operations, she still didn't have clearance to fully understand. They'd died as shadows, their sacrifices known only to a handful of people. Maybe it was time for something different. I'm in, she said. Drake allowed herself the smallest hint of a smile. I thought you might be. She pressed a button on her phone. Send them in. The door opened, and 6 operators filed into the room. Elena recognized the type immediately. Tier 1 professionals. The kind of men who didn't exist on paper but showed up when impossible jobs needed to be done. The team leader stepped forward. He was mid-30s, built like a compressed spring, with the kind of easy confidence that came from surviving things that should have killed him. Lieutenant Commander Cole Harrison, he said. Call sign Reaper. You must be the girl from the video. Specialist Elena Reyes. Call sign Phantom. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Phantom, that's cute. How old are you, kid? 20. A murmur rippled through the team. Harrison's expression shifted from amused to impressed. 20 years old, and you went through selection, youngest female to complete the program. And you've been running solo undercover for 4 months. 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days. Harrison let out a low whistle. Drake told us you were good. She didn't tell us you were a prodigy. I'm not a prodigy. I just don't quit. Something changed in Harrison's eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition, the acknowledgement of a shared mindset. Neither do we, he said. That's why we're going to go get those girls. You ready to work with an actual team for once? Elena thought about the 19 victims she'd been tracking. Girls who'd been taken from their families, their homes, their lives. Girls who were going to disappear tonight unless someone stopped it. I've been ready for 4 months, she said. Let's finish this. The briefing took 20 minutes. Drake laid out everything Elena had gathered during her 4 months undercover, the network of corrupt logistics personnel who'd been selling shipping routes, the cartel connections, the pattern of movements that had led her to identify the trafficking operation. The team listened intently, asking questions, building a tactical picture of what they were walking into. The shipment's coming in by container, Elena explained. They'll use a civilian vessel to avoid military scrutiny. The exchange happens in one of 4 warehouses on the eastern dock. I've narrowed it down based on communication patterns, but I can't confirm which one without eyes on the ground. What kind of resistance are we looking at? Harrison asked. Conservative estimate 15 to 20 hostiles, mix of cartel soldiers and private security contractors. They'll have automatic weapons, body armor, and night vision. And how many of them know what you look like? Elena paused. All of them probably, by now. Harrison nodded slowly. That's actually perfect. Perfect. They're going to be watching for you, expecting you. Every pair of eyes is going to be focused on the most visible approach routes because that's where they think you'll come from. And, Harrison grinned. It was the grin of a man who enjoyed his job way too much. While they're watching for the famous girl from TikTok, my team's going to be coming through the floor. Elena looked at him. The floor? The Eastern Dock has a maintenance tunnel system that runs under the warehouses. Built in the 60s, barely maintained, not on any current schematics. But it's there. How do you know about it? Because I grew up in Pensacola. My grandfather was a longshoreman. He used to sneak me into those tunnels when I was a kid. Harrison's grin widened. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Drake stepped in. Here's the plan. Elena hits the front entrance, makes a lot of noise, draws every hostile in the building toward her position. While they're focused on the distraction, Reaper's team comes up through the tunnels, secures the victims, and neutralizes the network from inside. What about Elena's extraction? One of the operators asked. I'll handle my own extraction, Elena said. Harrison looked at her skeptically. You're going to walk into a building full of people who want you dead and handle your own extraction. I got into the SEALs at 19. I've been running solo operations for 4 months. I think I can handle a warehouse. This isn't like your video, kid. Those were 5 drunk recruits who couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. These are professional killers. I know what they are. Elena's voice was cold, hard. The voice of someone who'd seen darkness most people couldn't imagine. My parents were killed by people just like them. They know exactly what I am too. The room went quiet. Harrison studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, Phantom. You want to be bait? Be the best damn bait those cartel bastards have ever seen. But remember, you're not alone this time. We've got your back. I know, Elena said. But if something goes wrong, if I don't make it out, you get those girls to safety. That's the priority. Not me. Nothing's going to go wrong. Promise me anyway. Harrison held her gaze. He'd been doing this long enough to know that promises in the field were worthless. But he also understood what she was asking. If she died tonight, her sacrifice had to mean something. I promise, he said. Those girls are getting home. One way or another. Elena nodded. That was enough. Drake checked her watch. You have 90 minutes until insertion. I suggest you use the time to prepare. The team filed out of the room, heading to gear up. Elena started to follow, but Drake's voice stopped her. Elena. She turned. Drake was standing by the window, looking out at the base. Her face was unreadable. Your parents, Drake said quietly. They were good operators. The best I ever worked with. I know. They would be proud of you. What you've accomplished. What you're about to do. Elena felt something twist in her chest. An emotion she'd learned to bury a long time ago. My parents died in the shadows, she said. Nobody knows what they sacrificed. Nobody knows their names. You know. That's not enough. Not anymore. Drake turned to face her. Then make tonight count. Show them what Elena Reyes is capable of when she's not hiding. Elena thought about the video. 29 million people had seen her fight. 29 million people knew her face. Her parents had spent their careers being invisible. They died invisible. Tonight, Elena was going to be seen. And God help anyone who stood in her way. 73 minutes later, Elena stood in the shadows outside Warehouse 14 at the port of Pensacola. She could hear movement inside. Voices. The rumble of a container being moved into position. Her earpiece crackled. Phantom, this is Reaper. We're in position. Tunnel access is clear. On your mark. Elena took a breath. Somewhere inside that building were 19 girls who'd been taken from their lives. 19 families who were missing daughters, sisters, loved ones. And somewhere inside that building were the people responsible. Elena had spent 4 months being invisible. Tonight she was going to be unforgettable. Reaper, she said quietly. Mark. She stepped out of the shadows and walked toward the front door. 30 seconds later, the first gunshot split the night. The bullet missed Elena's head by 3 inches. She was already moving before the shooter could fire again, rolling left, coming up behind a stack of shipping pallets, as 2 more rounds punched holes in the metal where she'd been standing. Contact front, a voice shouted inside the warehouse. It's her! It's the girl from the video! Elena smiled grimly. Good. They knew she was here. That meant every eye in the building was about to turn toward the front entrance, exactly as planned. Reaper, I'm engaged, she said into her earpiece. Count at least 8 hostiles visible, probably more in the back. Copy that, Phantom. We're breaching the tunnel access now. Keep them busy. Keep them busy? Like she was hosting a dinner party instead of walking into a kill zone. Elena drew her sidearm and moved. The warehouse was chaos. Men shouting flashlights, cutting through the darkness, the metallic sound of weapons being readied. She could hear at least 3 different voices giving contradictory orders. Spread out! Find her! No, stay together. She's trained. Who cares how she's trained? There's 20 of us, and one of her... Elena used the confusion. She slipped between containers, moving silent as smoke. Her breathing controlled her mind, calculating angles and distances. A guard came around a corner 5 feet in front of her. He had maybe half a second to register surprise before Elena's palm connected with his throat. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to collapse his windpipe temporarily. He went down gasping, and she was already gone before his body hit the floor. Man down east side! The shouts intensified. More footsteps pounding in her direction. Elena changed position, moving west while they searched east. Classic misdirection. Make them think you're somewhere you're not. Phantom, we're inside the tunnel. Harrison's voice crackled in her ear. 60 seconds to breach point. Copy, I'll give you a distraction. Elena spotted a fire extinguisher mounted on a support column. She pulled it free, yanked the pin, and hurled it toward the center of the warehouse. It hit the ground and exploded in a cloud of white chemical foam. Men screamed. Gunfire erupted wildly as panicked guards shot at shadows. What the hell was that? I can't see. Hold your fire, you idiots. You're going to hit each other. Elena moved through the chaos like a ghost. 3 more guards down in 8 seconds. Nerve strikes, joint locks, controlled takedowns. None of them saw her coming. None of them would remember what hit them. But she was running out of time. The element of surprise was fading. The guards were getting organized, forming into groups, covering each other's movements. Professional tactics. These weren't drunk recruits anymore. There, I see her. Elena dove behind a forklift as automatic weapons fire tore through the air above her head. The rounds sparked off metal, showering her with hot fragments. Reaper, I could use that breach right about now. 30 seconds, Phantom. Hold your position. 30 seconds. In a firefight, 30 seconds was an eternity. Elena checked her magazine. 8 rounds left. She had a backup mag, but even with perfect accuracy, she couldn't take down 20 hostiles with 16 bullets. She needed another option. That's when she heard it. A girl screaming. Not in fear. In defiance. Elena's blood went cold. The victims. They were close. Closer than the intel had suggested. She abandoned cover and sprinted toward the sound. Phantom, what are you doing? Hold position. She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. That scream had triggered something primal in her, something that went beyond training and tactics. She knew that sound. She'd made that sound once a long time ago when men with guns had come for her parents. 20 feet, a metal door, locked. Elena didn't slow down. She hit the door with her shoulder at full speed, channeling every ounce of momentum into the impact. The lock shattered. The door flew open, inside chaos. 19 girls huddled against the far wall, ages ranging from maybe 14 to early 20s, terrified, some crying, some frozen in shock, and standing in front of them a girl who couldn't have been more than 16, holding a broken piece of pipe like a weapon facing down 3 armed guards. "Stay back," the girl screamed. "I'll kill you, I swear! I'll kill you!" One of the guards laughed. "With that, little girl, put that down before you hurt yourself." He stepped forward. Elena shot him in the knee. The guard went down screaming. The other 2 spun toward Elena, weapons rising. She was faster. 2 shots. 2 hits. Center mass. Non-lethal, the rounds caught their body armor and knocked them flat, but they'd live. Elena stepped over their groaning bodies and approached the girl with the pipe. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here to help." The girl's eyes were wild, desperate. "Who are you? My name is Elena. I'm with the Navy. I'm going to get you out of here." "The Navy," the girl's voice cracked. "They said nobody was coming. They said nobody knew where we were." They were wrong. Elena held out her hand. "I've been looking for you for 4 months, all of you. I'm sorry it took so long." The girl stared at Elena's hand like it might bite her. Then something broke in her expression. The pipe clattered to the floor. She grabbed Elena's hand and held on like she was drowning. "Please," she whispered. "Please get us out of here." "That's exactly what I'm going to do." Elena's earpiece crackled. "Phantom, we're through, moving to secure the package now." "Change of plans, Reaper. Package is with me. Back room east side. 19 souls all accounted for." A pause. "You found them already?" I followed the sound of someone fighting back. Another pause. Then Harrison's voice quieter. "Copy that, Phantom. We're on our way. Hold position." Elena looked at the 19 girls huddled against the wall. Scared. Traumatized. But alive. "Help is coming," she told them. "Stay together. Stay quiet. This will all be over soon." "What about you?" the girl with the pipe asked. Elena checked her weapon. 4 rounds left. "I'm going to make sure nobody else comes through that door." She positioned herself at the entrance back against the wall, weapon ready. Outside, she could hear more shouting. The guards were regrouping. "She's got the cargo east side. Everyone to the east side. Heavy footsteps. Multiple. Getting closer." Elena took a breath. "Come on, Harrison. Move fast." The first guard came through the doorway at full speed. Elena clotheslined him with her forearm. He went down hard, unconscious before he hit the ground. The second guard was smarter. He came in low weapon first. Elena grabbed his rifle barrel, redirected it toward the ceiling, and drove her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over. She brought her elbow down on the back of his neck. 2 down. The third guard held back, using the doorframe as cover. "I know you're in there," he shouted. "You're trapped. Just give up and maybe we let you live." "I've got a better idea," Elena called back. "You give up and I definitely let you live." Laughter. "There's 12 of us and 1 of you, sweetheart. Math's not in your favor." "Funny thing about math," Elena said. "It doesn't account for training." She pulled the fire alarm. The sprinklers exploded. Water poured down. Alarms screamed. The guard at the door flinched, blinded for just a second. A second was all Elena needed. She came through the doorway like a missile, hitting him low, taking him off his feet. They hit the ground together, but she was on top, delivering precise strikes to nerve clusters that left him paralyzed but conscious. 11, she whispered in his ear. Want to keep counting? 3 more guards rushed her position. Elena met them head-on. The fight was brutal and fast. She took a hit to the ribs that would leave a bruise, a glancing blow to her temple that made her vision blur. But she kept moving, kept striking, kept taking them apart piece by piece. 8 seconds. 3 more down. 8 left, she breathed. Her earpiece crackled. Phantom, we're 30 seconds out. What's your status? Holding. But hurry. The remaining guards had stopped rushing her. They'd learned. Now they were hanging back, using cover, trying to get angles on her position. You can't win this, one of them called out. Even if you take all of us down, more are coming. The whole organization knows about you now. Good, Elena said. Then they'll know who ended them. She heard it before she saw it. A helicopter. Getting closer. Not a military bird. Something civilian. A getaway vehicle. Boss is calling for evac, someone shouted. Everyone fall back to the roof. The guards started retreating. Not toward Elena. Away from her. Toward whatever exit led to the roof. Elena's blood ran cold. If the leadership escaped, they'd rebuild. New routes, new operations, new victims. Everything she'd done would be meaningless. Reaper, we've got runners heading for the roof. Helicopter inbound. Copy Phantom. Can you intercept? Elena looked back at the room full of girls, scared, vulnerable, counting on her to keep them safe. She couldn't be in 2 places at once. Negative, I'm staying with the package. Then we'll handle the roof. Hold your position. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to chase down the men responsible for trafficking 19 innocent girls, wanted to make them pay for every life they'd destroyed. But that wasn't the mission. The mission was the girls. She fell back to the doorway, weapon ready, waiting for Harrison's team. 30 seconds felt like 30 years. Then she heard it. Controlled footsteps. Professional movements, the sound of men who knew exactly what they were doing. Phantom, we're coming in. Don't shoot us. When Harrison's team materialized out of the darkness, like shadows given form, 6 operators fully kitted, sweeping the room with practiced efficiency. Package secure, one of them reported. 19 souls all alive. Harrison approached Elena. His eyes swept over her, the blood on her knuckles, the bruise forming on her temple, the water dripping from her soaked uniform. You look like hell. You should see the other guys. Harrison almost smiled. How many did you take down? Lost count after 11. 11. He shook his head. 20 years old and you dropped 11 hostiles single-handed. 12 technically, but one of them was from earlier. This time Harrison did smile. Drake said you were good. She undersold it. The helicopter, Elena said. The leadership. Already handled. We had snipers on the perimeter. Bird went down 300 meters offshore. Coast Guard's fishing out the survivors now. Survivors. That meant some of them had lived. That meant there would be interrogations. Intel. The chance to roll up the entire network. Elena felt something release in her chest. Tension she'd been carrying for 4 months. It's over. The operation is over. The cleanup is just beginning. Harrison looked past her at the 19 girls being tended to by his team. You did good, Phantom. Those girls are going home because of you. Elena turned to look at them, too. The girl with the pipe, the one who'd been ready to fight 3 armed men with a piece of metal, caught her eye. The girl mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." Elena nodded. That was enough. That was everything. Let's get them out of here, she said. The next 3 hours were controlled chaos. Police, FBI, Homeland Security, Coast Guard, every alphabet agency imaginable descended on the port of Pensacola. Evidence teams swept the warehouse. Medical personnel evaluated the victims. Reporters gathered outside the perimeter, held back by military police. Elena sat in the back of an ambulance while a medic examined her injuries. Bruised ribs, minor concussion, assorted cuts and contusions. "You're lucky," the medic said. "This could have been a lot worse." "It was worse for them." Drake appeared at the ambulance door. Her expression was unreadable. "The network is dismantled." 16 arrests so far, including 3 active-duty military personnel who were selling logistics information. The cartel's Pensacola operation is finished. And the girls, being reunited with their families as we speak. Some will need extensive counseling, but they're alive. They're free. Elena closed her eyes. For just a moment, she let herself feel the weight of what had happened. The relief, the exhaustion, the quiet satisfaction of a mission completed. Then she opened her eyes. "What about me?" Drake was silent for a long moment. "Your identity is completely burned. The mess hall video has been seen by over 50 million people worldwide. Every news network is running stories about the mysterious Navy woman who took down 5 attackers and then led a raid on a human trafficking operation. So what happens now? Now you have a choice." Drake sat down beside her on the ambulance bench. "Option 1, we extract you. New identity, new life, somewhere far away from all of this. You disappear, and Elena Reyes ceases to exist. And option 2. Drake looked at her steadily. "Option 2 is more complicated, more public, and significantly more dangerous. Tell me." "The Navy wants to make an example of what happened here. Not hide it, celebrate it. Show the world what our operators are capable of. Show young women everywhere that there's a place for them in special operations." Elena processed this. "You want me to go public?" "I want you to have the choice. Your parents spent their careers in the shadows. They were heroes, but nobody outside a very small circle will ever know their names. You could do the same thing. Disappear. Keep serving in the dark." Drake paused. "Or you could step into the light. Become something more than an operator. Become a symbol." Elena thought about her parents, about the sacrifice they'd made, about the way they'd died and alone, unrecognized, their heroism known only to a handful of people. She thought about the girl with the pipe, the one who'd been ready to fight impossible odds because giving up wasn't in her nature. That girl would never have known to fight if she'd never seen someone else do it first. "If I go public," Elena said slowly, "I can never operate undercover again." "Correct. My career as a field operator is over." "Also correct. But those girls, the ones we saved tonight, they'll know someone was fighting for them. And other girls who are thinking about joining the military, about pushing themselves, about being something more than what the world expects. They'll see you. They'll see what's possible." Elena looked out at the chaos of the crime scene, the flashing lights, the bustling personnel, the evidence of a battle won. "My parents died in the dark," she said. "Maybe it's time for something different." Drake nodded slowly. "I was hoping you'd say that. What happens now? Now you rest, recover, and tomorrow you and I are going to have a very long conversation about what comes next." Drake stood up. "For what it's worth, Elena, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I've trained dozens of operators. Some of them are legends in circles you'll never know about." She paused at the ambulance door. "You're the best I've ever seen. Not because of your skills, though those are exceptional, because of your heart. You could have run tonight, could have saved yourself. Instead, you walked into a building full of people who wanted you dead, because 19 strangers needed your help." Elena didn't know what to say. That's what makes a hero, Drake said. Not the training, not the medals. The willingness to sacrifice everything for people who will never know your name. She stepped out of the ambulance. Get some sleep, Phantom. Tomorrow the whole world is going to know your name. Elena watched her go. 50 million views, 16 arrests, 19 girls saved, 20 years old. She should have been in college somewhere worrying about exams and parties and what to do with her life. Instead, she was sitting in the back of an ambulance at a crime scene covered in blood and bruises, wondering what came next. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. 3 words. Your parents would be proud. Elena stared at the message for a long time. Then she put the phone away, closed her eyes, and let herself rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, a new life she couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, she'd done what she'd set out to do. The girls were safe. The network was destroyed. And Elena Reyes was no longer invisible. 3 days after the warehouse raid, Elena walked into the Naval Air Station Pensacola brig. Her bruises had faded to yellow. Her ribs still ached when she breathed too deeply. But she was alive, and 19 girls were home with their families because of what she'd done. Now she had one more thing to finish. The guard at the security desk looked up when she approached. His eyes widened with recognition. You're her, the girl from the video. I need to see the prisoners from the mess hall incident. The 5 recruits. The guard hesitated. Ma'am, those men are facing court-martial proceedings. Visitors aren't usually... Check your authorization list. My name should be on it. He typed something into his computer. His eyebrows rose. Specialist Reyes. Yes, ma'am. You're cleared for access. He looked at her differently now. Not just recognition. Respect. Cell block C. I'll have someone escort you. I know the way. Elena walked down the corridor alone. Her footsteps echoed off the concrete walls. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. She thought about what she was going to say. She'd rehearsed it a dozen times. But now that she was here, the words felt inadequate. The holding area held 5 cells. 5 men. 5 choices that had changed everything. Derek Walsh was in the first cell. He sat on his bunk staring at the wall. His right hand was wrapped in a cast, the 2 fingers Elena had broken when she'd disarmed him. He looked smaller than she remembered. Diminished. Walsh, and his head snapped toward her. For a moment, something like fear flickered in his eyes. Then it was replaced by something harder. Shame, maybe. Or anger. Come to gloat, his voice was hoarse. The famous girl from the video visiting the losers she destroyed. Elena didn't answer immediately. She studied him. The man who'd grabbed her wrist. The man who'd pulled a knife. The man who'd tried to prove his worth by making her feel worthless. I came to talk. Talk, Walsh laughed bitterly. About what? How you ruined my life, how you took everything from me. I didn't take anything from you, Walsh. You threw it away yourself. Bullshit. He stood up, moving to the bars. If you'd just kept your mouth shut, if you'd just let us have our fun, your fun. Elena's voice went cold. 5 men surrounding one woman, grabbing her, threatening her, pulling a knife on her. That's your idea of fun. Walsh's jaw tightened. We weren't going to actually hurt you. You don't know that. I don't know that. And those 19 girls in that warehouse, the ones being trafficked through military channels, they didn't know if anyone was going to hurt them either. Walsh blinked. What does that have to do with everything? Elena stepped closer to the bars. I was undercover, Walsh. 4 months of work tracking a trafficking network that was selling shipping routes to cartels. 19 girls were going to disappear forever, and I was this close to stopping it quietly. She held up her thumb and forefinger barely an inch apart. Then you decided to prove what a big man you were by bullying someone you thought was weak. Your little stunt went viral. 50 million people saw my face. The cartel identified me. They accelerated their timeline. Those girls almost died because you couldn't handle being a failure. Walsh's face went pale. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. That's the point. You looked at me and saw a small woman in an oversized uniform. You saw someone you could push around to make yourself feel better about washing out of SEAL training. She watched the words hit him like physical blows. What you didn't see was a Navy SEAL who'd completed the same training you quit. What you didn't see was someone who'd been running solo operations for 4 months. What you didn't see was a person. Walsh sank back onto his bunk. His head dropped into his hands. I'm sorry, he said. The words came out broken. I'm so sorry. I know. He looked up. Tears were streaming down his face. You know, I know what it's like to feel like a failure. I know what it's like to want to prove yourself so badly that you'll do anything hurt anyone to make that feeling go away. Elena's voice softened slightly. I almost quit during Hell Week. Day 3. I had the bell in my hand. I was ready to ring it and walk away from everything. Walsh stared at her. What stopped you? My mother's face. She died a warrior. I couldn't dishonor that. Elena paused. My parents were killed when I was 8. Both of them. Classified operation. I joined the Navy because I wanted to honor their sacrifice. I wanted their deaths to mean something. And now I realize that honoring them isn't about being invisible. It's about making a difference, even when it's hard, even when it costs everything. Walsh was silent for a long moment. What's going to happen to me? You're facing assault charges. Attempted assault with a deadly weapon. Conduct unbecoming. The other 4 are looking at similar charges, though probably lighter sentences, since they didn't pull a knife. I'm going to prison. Probably, for a while at least. Walsh nodded slowly, like he'd already accepted it. I deserve it. Maybe, but that's not why I'm here. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a card, slid it through the bars. Walsh picked it up. Read it. His brow furrowed. What is this? A counselor. Someone who specializes in helping people who failed special operations training. She helps them process the trauma, find new purpose, figure out who they're supposed to be when their original dream dies. Why would you give me this? Because destroying you doesn't help anyone. Elena met his eyes. You made a terrible choice. You're going to pay for it. But when you get out, and you will get out eventually, you have another choice to make. You can keep being the bitter, angry man who attacks people weaker than himself. Or you can do the work to become someone better. Walsh looked at the card for a long time. Why do you care? He asked finally. After what I did to you. After what I almost did. Why would you want to help me? Because my mother taught me something before she died. She said that real strength isn't about hurting people. It's about lifting them up, even when they don't deserve it. Elena turned to leave. Reyes. She stopped. The other guys. Brooks, Ortega, Cole, Chen. They're not bad people. They just followed me because I was loud and confident and they didn't know any better. I know. Chen tried to stop us. He told us to leave you alone. I didn't listen. I know that too. That's why I didn't hit him. Walsh almost smiled. You really did see everything, didn't you? It's what I'm trained to do. Then you know I'm telling the truth when I say I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. Because I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Because I almost ruined something important. Elena looked at him one last time. Prove it. When you get out. Prove that you're more than the worst thing you ever did." She walked away without waiting for a response. Elena visited the other 4 cells. Brooks was sullen, unwilling to make eye contact. His nose was still bandaged from where Elena had broken it. He muttered something that might have been an apology, but the words held no conviction. Ortega was philosophical. His knee was in a brace. He'd need surgery and months of physical therapy. "You fought like a demon," he said. "I've never seen anything like it. If I'd known what you were, I never would have—" "That's the problem," Elena interrupted. "You shouldn't need to know what someone is to treat them with respect." Ortega had no response to that. Cole was the most remorseful of the group. He'd been the reluctant participant, the one who'd followed along because he didn't want to seem weak. Now he was facing consequences for a choice he'd never really wanted to make. "I should have said something," he told Elena through the bars. "I should have walked away, but I was scared of what they'd think of me." "That's how it starts," Elena said. "One compromise, one moment of cowardice, then another, until you're standing in a circle around someone helping to trap them, telling yourself you're not really part of it." Cole flinched. "What do I do now?" "You figure out who you want to be, and you never let fear make that decision for you again." Chen was last. He was the youngest, the one who'd tried to stop his friends, the one Elena had spared because she'd recognized the conflict in his eyes. When she approached his cell, he stood up immediately. "I'm sorry," he said before she could speak. "I know it doesn't mean much. I know I still went along with it. But I'm sorry." "Why didn't you walk away?" Chen's face contorted with shame. "I was afraid. We'd only been on base 3 weeks. Those guys were my only friends. I didn't want to be alone." "So you stayed while they surrounded a woman, while they threatened her, while they pulled a knife?" "Yes." He couldn't meet her eyes. "And I hate myself for it." Elena was quiet for a moment. "You know what the difference is between you and Walsh?" Chen finally looked up. "He still thinks he's the victim. He's sorry because he got caught, because his life is ruined, because he's facing consequences. You're sorry because you know you were wrong. Does that matter? It's the only thing that matters." Elena stepped closer. "You made a mistake, Chen, a bad one. But you're 21 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. The question is what you do with it." "What can I do? My career is over. My family won't talk to me. Everyone knows what happened." "Everyone knows what you did. They don't know who you can become." Elena reached through the bars and gripped his shoulder. He flinched at the contact, the same hand that had disabled 5 men in 45 seconds. "Listen to me," she said. "The hardest thing I ever did wasn't completing SEAL training. It wasn't surviving 4 months under cover. It wasn't fighting my way through that warehouse." "Then what was it?" "Forgiving myself for the mistakes I made along the way. The times I wasn't strong enough. The times I wasn't brave enough. The times I failed." Chen stared at her. You failed." "Everyone fails. The difference between people who stay broken and people who heal is whether they're willing to do the work." And she released his shoulder. "You have a choice, David Chen. Same choice Walsh has. Same choice everyone has. Become bitter or become better. It's up to you." She turned and walked toward the exit. "Specialist Reyes." She paused. "That girl, the one in the video, the one who didn't flinch when 5 men surrounded her." Chen's voice cracked. "How did she get so strong?" Elena looked back at him. She watched her parents die when she was 8 years old. She spent the next 12 years training herself to never be helpless again. Her voice was quiet, steady. "Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Every day, every choice, every time you decide to get back up instead of staying down." She walked out of the brig. The sun was setting over Pensacola when Elena emerged. She stood outside the building for a moment, breathing the salt air, feeling the warmth on her face. The same sun that had risen over the mess hall 4 days ago. The same sun that would rise tomorrow and the day after that, and all the days that followed. So much had changed. 50 million people had seen her face. Her cover was permanently blown. Her career as an undercover operator was finished before it had really begun. But 19 girls were home with their families. A trafficking network was destroyed, and 5 men who'd made terrible choices were being forced to confront the consequences. Her phone buzzed. A message from Drake. Pentagon briefing tomorrow. 0800. They want to discuss your future. Elena typed back. What kind of future? The kind where you become the face of something bigger than yourself, if you want it. Elena thought about her parents again. The shadows they'd lived in. The anonymity that had defined their service. She thought about the girl with the pipe in the warehouse, the one who'd been ready to fight impossible odds, the one who'd mouthed thank you when Elena had found her. She thought about Derek Walsh sitting in his cell holding a card for a counselor who might help him become someone better. She thought about David Chen asking how she'd become so strong. Strength isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Elena looked at Drake's message one more time. Then she typed her response. I want it. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in a room full of reporters. The Pentagon press briefing had been scheduled for 30 minutes. It would run for over 2 hours. Admiral Catherine Brooks, no relation to Tyler Brooks, one of Elena's attackers, stood at the podium flanked by flags and the official seal of the Department of the Navy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Today, we're here to address the incident that occurred at Naval Air Station Pensacola 2 weeks ago, and to introduce someone who has already captured the attention of the nation. The room buzzed with anticipation. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. The woman you know from the viral video, the woman who defended herself against 5 attackers in 45 seconds, is not, as her cover story suggested, a supply clerk. She is in fact a Navy SEAL, one of only a handful of women to have ever completed the program. Gasps. Murmurs. More camera flashes. Her name is Specialist First Class Elena Reyes. She is 20 years old. She is the youngest female to complete SEAL qualification training in the history of the program. And 2 weeks ago, she led an operation that rescued 19 human trafficking victims and dismantled a cartel network that had been operating through military channels. Admiral Brooks stepped aside. Specialist Reyes. Elena walked to the podium. The room exploded with shouted questions. Specialist Reyes, how did you feel when those men surrounded you? Were you scared during the fight? What's your message to young women watching this? How did you become a Navy SEAL at 19? Elena waited for the noise to subside. She'd prepared a statement. Drake had helped her write it. Professional, measured, appropriate. She didn't use it. I'm not going to stand here and tell you I'm special, she said. I'm not going to pretend that what happened in that mess hall was some kind of heroic moment. The room went quiet. 5 men surrounded me because they thought I was weak. They thought I was small and young and female, and that meant I couldn't fight back. They were wrong about me, but they're not wrong about a lot of people. Every day, people who look like me are harassed, threatened, attacked by people who think they can get away with it. Elena's voice hardened. I had 20 years of training when those men grabbed my wrist. Most people don't have that. Most people can't defend themselves the way I can. And that's the real problem. She looked directly into the cameras. I'm not here to be a symbol. I'm here to be useful. If my story helps one girl realize she can push herself harder than she thought possible, good. If my story helps one boy understand that women deserve respect regardless of their size or appearance, even better. Elena paused. But what I really hope is that my story helps people understand something simple. You never know what someone is capable of. You never know what battles they've fought, what training they've survived, what losses they've endured. So maybe, just maybe, treat everyone like they might be more than they appear. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole room was applauding. Elena stood at the podium, 19 years old, covered in bruises that were still healing, carrying wounds that never would. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't invisible. The press conference ended. The reporters filed out. The cameras stopped rolling. Drake found Elena standing alone in the empty room. That wasn't the speech we prepared. No, it wasn't. Drake studied her for a moment. It was better. Elena didn't respond. The Pentagon loved it. They're already talking about a recruitment campaign featuring you. Posters, commercials, the whole package. Is that what I'm supposed to do now? Sell the Navy to teenagers. That's one option. Drake sat down in one of the empty chairs. There are others. Like what? Like becoming an instructor. Training the next generation of operators. Showing young women and young men what's possible when you refuse to quit. Elena thought about it. Training. Teaching. Passing on what she'd learned. It wasn't what she'd imagined for herself. She'd wanted to be a shadow. An invisible weapon. A ghost that drifted through the world, leaving justice in her wake. But shadows couldn't inspire. Ghosts couldn't teach. Maybe it was time for something different. There's something else, Drake said. Something you should know before you make any decisions. What? Drake pulled out her phone and showed Elena the screen. It was a news article. The headline read, "Mess Hall Video Inspires Record Number of Female Military Applications." Elena stared at the words. 340% increase in female applicants to special operations programs in the last 2 weeks, Drake said. Across all branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, young women who saw your video and decided they wanted to try. Because of me. Because of what you represent. Possibility. Potential. The idea that strength doesn't have a gender. Elena handed back the phone. She thought about her parents, about the shadows they'd lived in, about the legacy they'd left behind, a legacy that only she would ever know. Maybe this was a different kind of legacy. A public one. A visible one. Maybe this was what she was supposed to be all along. I'll do it, she said. The instructor position, the recruitment campaign, whatever you need. Drake nodded. I thought you might say that. But I have one condition. Name it. Elena looked at her former handler, her mentor, the woman who'd shaped her into what she'd become. I want to tell my parents' story. Not the classified parts, but the truth about who they were, what they sacrificed, why they mattered. When Drake was quiet for a long moment. That's not a small request. I know. There are people who won't be happy about it. I know that too. Drake studied her face. The same face that 50 million people had seen. The same face that was about to become the symbol of a new generation of warriors. I'll make some calls, she said finally. No promises, but I'll try. Elena nodded. It was enough. For now, it was enough. 6 months later, Elena stood on the beach at Coronado, watching the sun rise over the Pacific. The sand was cold beneath her bare feet. The waves crashed in steady rhythm, the same rhythm that had broken thousands of candidates who'd tried to become SEALs. The same rhythm that had almost broken her. Today was different. Today She wasn't a candidate. She wasn't an operator. She wasn't even the girl from the viral video anymore. Today, she was an instructor. "You ready for this?" Elena turned. Lieutenant Commander Cole Harrison, callsign Reaper, walked across the sand toward her. He'd been assigned as her co-instructor for the new integrated training program, the first class that would include female candidates from the very beginning. "Ready as I'll ever be." "Nervous. Should I be?" Harrison smiled. 12 candidates, 3 of them women. They've all seen your video about 1,000 times. They think you're some kind of superhero. Then I'll have to disappoint them. That's the spirit. They walked together toward the training facility. Elena's mind drifted to the journey that had brought her here. The mess hall, the warehouse, the press conference, the 6 months of preparation for a role she'd never imagined. She'd visited her grandmother in San Antonio 3 times during that period. Each visit, Abuela Maria had said the same thing. Your parents would be proud. Elena was starting to believe it. The candidates were assembled when she arrived. 12 young faces. Eager, terrified, determined. They ranged in age from 19 to 24. 9 men, 3 women. All of them had passed the preliminary screening. All of them had proven they had what it took to attempt the most demanding military training in the world. None of them knew what they were really in for. Elena stood before them in her training uniform. No medals. No insignia that revealed her classified history. Just a small patch on her shoulder that read, Instructor. "My name is Specialist First Class Elena Reyes," she said. Her voice carried across the morning air. "Some of you know me from a video that went viral 6 months ago. Some of you applied to this program because of that video." She paused, letting the words settle. "I'm going to tell you something right now, and I need you to understand it completely. That video shows 45 seconds of a fight. What it doesn't show is the 20 years of training that made those 45 seconds possible." She walked slowly along the line of candidates, meeting each pair of eyes. "It doesn't show the hours I spent learning to control my breathing. The days I spent practicing the same techniques until they became muscle memory. The weeks of mental conditioning that taught me to stay calm when 5 men were trying to hurt me." She stopped in front of a young woman, 19 years old, blonde hair pulled back tight, eyes that burned with determination. "What's your name, candidate?" "Jessica Torres, ma'am." "Why are you here, Torres?" "Because I saw what you did, ma'am, and I realized that if you could do it, maybe I could too." Elena nodded slowly. "That's a good reason to start, but it won't be enough to finish." She moved on. The next candidate was male, 22, built like a linebacker. The kind of guy who'd probably never been challenged physically in his life. Name, Michael Reeves, ma'am. "Why are you here, Reeves?" He hesitated. "To prove I'm the best, ma'am." "The best at what?" "At everything." Elena studied him. "You see these 3 women standing in line with you?" "Yes, ma'am." "By the end of this training, at least one of them will outperform you. Probably more than one. How does that make you feel?" Reeves's jaw tightened. "Respectfully, ma'am, I doubt that." "I know you do." Elena stepped closer. "That doubt is going to cost you. Not because women are better than men or men are better than women, but because the person who underestimates their teammates is the person who fails when it matters most." She turned to address all 12 candidates. "In this program, you will be pushed beyond every limit you think you have. You will be broken down and rebuilt. You will learn that the person standing next to you, regardless of their gender, their size, their background, might be the person who saves your life someday." Elena's voice hardened. "If you can't accept that, leave now. There's no shame in walking away before you start. But if you stay, You will treat every candidate with respect. You will support each other. You will become a team, or you will fail. Understood?" "Yes, ma'am," 12 voices shouted in unison. "Then let's begin." The first week was designed to break them. Cold water, sleep deprivation, physical challenges that pushed every candidate to their absolute limits. Elena had lived through it herself, and watching it happen to others was almost harder than experiencing it. 3 candidates quit by day 4. 2 men, 1 woman. The woman who quit, a 23-year-old named Sarah Chen, came to Elena before she left. "I'm sorry," Sarah said. Tears streamed down her face. "I wanted to be like you. I wanted to prove that women could do this." "You don't owe anyone proof," Elena told her. "This program isn't for everyone. Walking away doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest about your limits." "But I failed." "You tried. That's more than most people ever do." Elena gripped her shoulder. "Go home. Figure out what you really want. And if you decide this is still it, come back next year. The door doesn't close forever." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Did you ever think about quitting? Every day during Hell Week, every single day. What stopped you?" Elena thought about the question. The real answer was complicated grief, rage, a desperate need to honor parents she barely remembered. But the simple answer was simpler. "Stubbornness," she said. "Pure, stupid stubbornness. I refused to let the program beat me. I refused to let anyone tell me what I couldn't do." Sarah nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll find that someday." "Maybe you will." When she left that afternoon, Elena watched her go and felt something twist in her chest. Not everyone was meant for this life, but that didn't mean their effort was worthless. Week 2 brought a different challenge. Michael Reeves, the candidate who'd doubted the women would outperform him, was struggling. Not physically. He was strong enough, fast enough, tough enough. But he couldn't work with his team. Every exercise he tried to dominate. Every challenge he competed against his fellow candidates instead of cooperating with them. He treated the women in the group like obstacles rather than partners. Elena watched it happen for 3 days before she intervened. "Reeves, my office, now." He followed her into the small room that served as the instructor's headquarters. His face was defiant, defensive. "You wanted to see me, ma'am? Sit down." He sat. "You're failing this program." Reeves's eyes widened. "What my scores are in the top 3. I don't care about your scores." Elena leaned forward. "This isn't a competition, Reeves. It's team selection, and you're proving every day that you can't be part of a team." "I work harder than anyone out there." "Working hard isn't the same as working together. Yesterday's extraction exercise, you left Torres behind because you wanted to finish first." She was slowing me down. "She's your teammate. In a real operation, leaving her behind means she dies." Reeves's jaw tightened. "With respect, ma'am, she shouldn't be here. None of the women should. They can't keep up." Elena stood up slowly. "Torres completed yesterday's obstacle course 18 seconds faster than you did." Reeves blinked. "That's not possible." "I watched her myself. She's lighter, more agile, and she doesn't waste energy trying to prove how tough she is." Elena walked around the desk until she was standing directly in front of him. "You know what your problem is, Reeves. You're so focused on being the best that you can't see the people around you. I'm just competitive. You're afraid." Elena's voice cut through his excuse. "You're terrified that a woman might be better than you at something, and that fear is making you a liability to everyone on your team." Reeves went pale. "That's not—" 6 months ago, 5 men surrounded me in a mess hall. They thought the same thing you think. They looked at my size, my gender, and they decided I wasn't a threat. It took me 45 seconds to prove them wrong." She leaned closer. You have a choice, Reeves. You can keep being the man who underestimates his teammates, or you can open your eyes and see them for what they really are, assets that will make you stronger if you let them. And if I can't, then you'll wash out, not because you're not strong enough or fast enough, because you're not smart enough to recognize that lone wolves don't survive in this world. She straightened up. You have 24 hours to decide who you want to be. Dismissed. Reeves left without another word. Elena sat alone in her office, staring at the wall. She thought about Derek Walsh sitting in his cell holding a card for a counselor. She'd gotten word 2 weeks ago that he'd started therapy, that he was beginning to confront the bitterness that had poisoned him. Maybe Reeves would have the same breakthrough. Maybe he wouldn't. All she could do was give him the chance. The next morning, something changed. Reeves showed up to training early. He approached Torres before the exercises began. Hey, he said. His voice was uncertain, awkward. About yesterday, and well, every other day. I've been a jerk. Torres studied him warily. Yeah, you have. I'm sorry, I was scared, I guess. That sounds stupid. It doesn't sound stupid. Torres' expression softened slightly. It sounds honest. Can we start over work together, instead of against each other? Torres was quiet for a moment. Then she extended her hand. Partners? Reeves shook it. Partners. Elena watched from a distance, feeling something warm bloom in her chest. This was why she'd become an instructor. Not to create warriors, to create better people. Week 3 was Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous training. Almost no sleep. Physical challenges designed to destroy candidates mentally and emotionally. The crucible that separated those who wanted it from those who needed it. Elena remembered her own Hell Week. The cold. The exhaustion. The moment she'd held the bell in her hand, ready to ring it, ready to quit. She remembered her mother's face, the reason she'd let go of the bell. Now she watched 12 candidates down from the original 12 to 9 face the same crucible. The first to ring out was a 24-year-old named Jason Park. Good guy, strong, smart. But something broke inside him on day 2, and no amount of willpower could put it back together. Elena found him on the beach afterward, staring at the water. I'm sorry, he said without looking at her. Don't be. You made it further than most people ever will. It wasn't enough. Enough for what? He finally turned. His eyes were hollow. I wanted to be someone. Someone my family could be proud of. You are someone. And if your family can't be proud of everything you've accomplished just to get here, that's their failure, not yours. Park laughed bitterly. Easy for you to say. You're a legend. I'm a person who refused to quit, that's all. Elena sat down beside him. You know what I've learned in the past 6 months? Being a SEAL isn't the only way to matter. It's one path. There are thousands of others. What path is there for someone who failed? The path you choose next. That's the only one that matters. She left him on the beach. Some lessons couldn't be taught. They had to be discovered. Day 4 of Hell Week. 23 hours without sleep. Elena was monitoring the surf passage exercise when she saw it happen. Reeves went down. Not from exhaustion, from something else. His face went gray. His legs buckled. He collapsed face first into the sand. Medic! Elena sprinted across the beach. Harrison was right behind her. They reached Reeves just as he started convulsing. His eyes had rolled back. His body was shaking uncontrollably. Hypothermia, Harrison said. Severe. We need to get him warm now. The medical team took over. Reeves was wrapped in thermal blankets, loaded onto a stretcher, rushed to the infirmary. Elena watched them go, her heart pounding. She'd seen candidates hurt before. Injuries were part of the program. But watching Reeves, the arrogant man who'd finally started to change, being carried away, felt different. It felt personal. Torres appeared beside her. Is he going to be okay? I don't know. He was doing better. He was finally working with us instead of against us. I know. Torres was quiet for a moment. This program kills people sometimes, doesn't it? It can, if we're not careful. And we keep doing it anyway. Elena looked at the young woman. 19 years old, standing on a freezing beach in the middle of Hell Week, asking questions that didn't have easy answers. We keep doing it because the world needs people who can survive anything, people who won't quit when everything falls apart. Elena met her eyes. That's what we're building here. Not soldiers, survivors. Torres nodded slowly. Then let's get back to work. And she walked back toward her teammates. Elena watched her go and felt something she hadn't expected. Hope. Reeves survived. Hypothermia, not cardiac arrest. He spent 3 days in the infirmary recovering. When he came back, he was different. Quieter. More thoughtful. He didn't finish Hell Week. His body wasn't ready. But he asked to be recycled to the next class. I'll try again, he told Elena. And next time I'll be ready. Not just physically. All of it. What changed? Almost dying. He tried to smile. Gives you perspective. It does. And something you said, about lone wolves not surviving. He paused. When I went down, Torres was the first one to reach me. She held my head out of the sand until the medics arrived. She probably saved my life. She probably did. I spent weeks treating her like she didn't belong. And when it mattered, she was there for me anyway. His voice cracked. I don't deserve that. Then become someone who does. He nodded. I'm going to try. Graduation day. 6 candidates out of the original 12. They stood in formation on the same beach where they'd been broken down and rebuilt. Families watched from the bleachers. Cameras flashed. Officials gave speeches about honor and sacrifice. Elena stood before her graduates. 6 months ago, you came here because you wanted to prove something. Some of you wanted to prove you were tough enough. Some wanted to prove you were worthy. Some just wanted to prove that people like you could do this at all. She looked at each face in turn. You've proven all of it, but that's not what matters. What matters is what you do next. She paused. The training you've received isn't a destination. It's a beginning. Every skill you've learned, every lesson you've absorbed, those are tools. The question is what you build with them. Her voice strengthened. You can build fear. You can use what you've learned to dominate, to intimidate, to prove how powerful you are. Some people do. They become the bullies, the tyrants, the men who surround women in mess halls because they think strength means making others feel weak. She let the words hang in the air. Or you can build something else. You can use your strength to protect people who can't protect themselves. You can use your training to lift others up instead of pushing them down. You can become the kind of warrior the world actually needs. Elena stepped forward. I'm not going to tell you which path to choose. That's not my job. My job was to give you the tools. What you do with them is up to you. She saluted. Class 347, congratulations. You've earned this. The graduates saluted back. The ceremony ended. Families swarmed the beach. Tears and hugs and photographs. Elena stood apart, watching. Harrison found her. Good speech. Thanks. You know, when Drake told me I'd be working with a 20-year-old instructor, I thought she was crazy. And now, Harrison smiled, now I think you're exactly what this program needed. Someone who proves that warriors come in all shapes and sizes. Someone who shows these kids that strength isn't about how big you are or what's between your legs. I'm just doing my job. No, you're doing something much bigger than that. Elena's phone buzzed. A message from Drake. Check your email. It's finally approved. Elena opened her email. The message was from the Department of Defense. Official letterhead. Dense legal language. But the important part was clear. Authorization to declassify relevant portions of personnel files for Master Chief Fernando Reyes and Combat Controller First Class Maria Santos Reyes, deceased, for purposes of public memorial and family recognition. Elena's hands trembled. Her parents. Their names. Their story. Finally, the world would know. That night, Elena drove to San Antonio. Abuela Maria was waiting on the porch when she arrived. 80 years old. Gray hair pulled back. Eyes that held 12 decades of wisdom. Mija, she said. You look tired. I am tired, Abuela. Good tired or bad tired? Elena smiled. Good tired, the best kind. They sat together on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one. I got authorization today, Elena said, to tell Mom and Dad's story, their real story. Abuela was quiet for a long moment. I've waited a long time to hear those words. 12 years. 12 years of secrets. 12 years of not being able to tell anyone who my son really was. What he sacrificed. Her voice cracked. What your mother sacrificed. Elena reached over and took her grandmother's hand. The world is going to know now. Everyone will know what they did, who they were. Does it matter they're still gone? It matters to me. Elena squeezed the wrinkled hand. It matters to the girls I just graduated. They need to see that heroes come from everywhere. That a Mexican-American Master Chief and his wife could become two of the most decorated operators in history. Abuela turned to look at her. And what about you, Mija? What do you need? Elena thought about the question. She thought about the mess hall, the warehouse, the viral video that had changed everything. She thought about Derek Walsh finally getting help, about David Chen finding his path, about Michael Reeves learning humility the hard way. She thought about Jessica Torres standing on that graduation stage, proving that women belonged in every room and every battlefield. She thought about her parents, the shadows they'd lived in, the legacy they'd left behind. I needed to understand why they died, Elena said finally. And now I do. They died so that people like me could have a chance, so that the world could be a little bit safer. A little bit better. And that's enough. It's not enough. It never will be. Elena looked at her grandmother. But it's a start, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life building on that start, training new operators, telling their story, making sure their sacrifice meant something. Abuela smiled. It was the first real smile Elena had seen from her in years. Your mother used to say something. She said that strength wasn't about fighting. It was about standing up, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. I remember. You're standing up now, Mitja, taller than you've ever stood before. Elena looked out at the stars. Somewhere up there her parents were watching. She was sure of it. I learned from the best, she said. The next morning, Elena returned to Coronado. A new class of candidates would arrive in 3 weeks. More young men and women who wanted to prove themselves. More lives she would help shape. She stood on the beach as the sun rose, watching the waves crash against the shore. 50 million people had seen her fight 5 men in a mess hall. That video had made her famous. But this standing on this beach preparing to train the next generation of warriors, This was what made her matter. Her phone buzzed. A text from Harrison. New class roster just came in. 14 candidates. 5 women. Record number. Elena smiled. She typed back, "Then we better be ready for them." She put the phone away and walked toward the training facility. There was work to do. Elena Reyes had spent her whole life learning to be invisible. Now she was the most visible woman in the military, and she wouldn't have it any other way. Her parents had died in the shadows, their heroism known only to a handful of people. Their daughter would live in the light, carrying their legacy forward for the world to see. That was her mission now. That was her purpose, and she would never ever quit.